Hi guys, welcome back to our video series. As you remember, I started this design show series, but later it was, let's say, paused for some time. But now we are going to talk about something new. This is a new Chevrolet Corvette C8, and as you know, the car it was redesigned considerably. Now it's not a front engine car. Now it has completely different design, and I mean you can barely recognize the classic Corvette in it, and that's why it is interesting to see what are the main cues. So here we have the first photo. As you can see, that's a car from the front side and also from the side, classic view. And you can see already that this is not a classic Corvette silhouette, and as you can see, the frontal section still reminds about classic Corvette by those headlamps. So as you can see here, I would like to increase the brush so that you can see it properly. Here we have this classic shape of the Corvette, and here as well, and also this classic beak of the Corvette. Even though some guys say that it's not, let's say, related to the Corvette, still we have some cues, and those are, in my opinion, the main ones. Why? Because then we have completely untraditional design features. So for example, here we have those air intakes, which are not, let's say, traditional for Corvette at all, and they can't be found on any of those cars, and that's why, in my opinion, they are, let's say, new and not that good looking from the first side. But then if you look for some time, you see that they actually work with this car. Another thing is this air intake. So as you remember, on original car it was completely opposite side. It was here in the front arch. Now it is in the rear. Why? Because we have the mid-engine, so that's why we have to take some air inside. And also here, this body panel, it's not that good looking in my opinion. Here you can see another cue of the door. I'm not sure why it wasn't continued like this here. We decided, actually designers decided to have it here, even though it could have been united or unified with this small window, and door could be made longer, but it is like it is. And note, another interesting feature is that we have the mirror on a quite thin stand. So here I'll circle it like this, and you can see it here, and it adds some elegance to the overall design. But we are done, I think, with this view or look of this photo. Now let's move to the different plan. Okay, next we go with the silhouette of this car, and here things start to get interesting. Why? Because again we have this air intake here, you can see it, but also note this panel line which goes from the front wheel arch. Here you can see it, and it actually works with the air intake. It basically continues into the same line here and ends here. We can also say that it continues into this line, but it actually goes beyond the air intake, so that's why it's not that right. But the main thing, or the main feature, is that we have intersection of the several lines. Here is one, here is another one, and here is the third one. So as you can see, basically we have the X here, and also this interesting element, because it goes like this. And actually what makes this light, let's say, rays play on the body, and it doesn't look plain. Here, by the way, you can see another line which is not connected with anything at all. So as you can see, this line goes completely different direction. This line goes somewhere here. So if we continue it, it goes nowhere. So that's why I'm a bit confused about these lines, but let's cancel all this stuff. I would like to show something different. Okay, so here we are. Traditional test for the pillar, it goes like this, and as you can see, it almost fits, I would say. So here you can see it goes through the wheel middle part, so it is more or less right. But then if we decide to separate this car by halves, it goes like this. And here you can see that the main car part where driver and passenger sits, it's slightly moved to the forward. Why? Because we have the front engine, so basically engine is somewhere here, and here we have also the trunk. Here we have the passenger section and not the trunk. So that's why it's slightly moved forward. It's so-called cab forward scheme. And I would say some people were saying that classic Corvettes, they remind of the Mustang, air fighters, US fighters, also some other ones. This one reminds me about Aero Cobra, which had also the mid-engine body structure or design, so that's why it was like this. And another notable feature before we finish on this view, you can see here that we have the tail lights which go on this side, and they go considerably. It's not comparable with what we saw on the previous Corvettes, and the same can be said about the headlights. As you can see, they're also visible from the side view, so it's quite an interesting change in the overall philosophy of this design. But in my opinion, it works more or less. But again, we have weird elements. For example, here, this black part, I'm not sure what it makes. I mean, what difference it makes. It doesn't work with anything. Maybe with this accent on the air intake, with this one. But again, it's a matter of the personal taste, I would say. And in my opinion, it's not necessary to have it here. The same can be said about this glass, because as you can see, that's exactly what we were talking before. So as you can see here, we have these body panels which are not aligned at all. So here we have the door which goes somewhere here and crosses this glass in ugly fashion. The same goes about this rear panel. As you can see here, it is not connected visually with this pillar. So I'm not sure why it is like this, but it is notable that such feature is becoming more and more common on the recent supercars. Even Toyota Supra displays the same ugly cues on the side body view and the connections between body panels. I'm not sure why it is like this, because it's such a simple task just to make it visually aligned for a better appearance of the car. So now let's move to the rear section of the car. Rear of the car, rear part, in my opinion, it's complete change over what we had before, but it is kind of, I would say, traditional for our eyes today. Why? Because it is similar to what we saw on Camaro, so that's why we have those tail lights, which are not similar to what we saw on the previous Corvette, but they are similar to the Camaro. But you remember all what happened with Camaro. There is no clear let's say, solution on what will happen with Camaro if there will be next generation because of the bad sales. So I'm not sure if it is right decision to use the same design cue on the on such legendary model as a Corvette. So we will see how it will act. But from the other side, they played those 4-section tail lights as on the classic Corvettes. So at least something hints on the classic cues. Another feature is this mouth. I'm not sure why it is here, because it doesn't add anything, maybe for the focus on the number plate or on the license plate, but it's, I mean, in my opinion, it's unnecessary thing. And if you look more carefully, you have the eyes here, and you have the angry mouth here. Not cool in my opinion, and also combined with this weird rear wing, it's even more strange. So as you can see here, we have one stand, one pillar, here is another one, here's the third one, and here's the fourth one. So basically we have the 4-stand rear wing, and I'm not sure why it was done like this. And then we have also all those crazy lines going, crossing each other, and it's not that clear design layout, and it reminds me of the new BMWs, especially X6. You can check its photos on the internet, and you will see that it's also quite a weird alignment of the lines. Also another feature, I'm not sure if it is dependent on the package, but here you can see that this section of the car goes black, in the black color. I'm not sure why, maybe to add this, let's say, mouth-like, so that you think that there is empty, but then we have the chromed exhaust tips, and again, why, I'm not sure. And in my opinion, it would rather work if we add the exhaust tips in the middle, just like on the classic Corvette, because now it does not add any visual interest. At least they are squarish, not the round ones, because it would be strange to see the round exhaust tips on such angular design. And also here note those black components which also do not play anything at all. Why? Because here we have the body line which goes like this, and then it is continued with a black panel. It's, in my opinion, it's complete nonsense, and I would rather have it in the body color in order to have the visually clean design. But obviously it was done in order to increase this size of the rear glass, but in my opinion it's not necessary thing to do, and it could be better in a body color. And now let's take a look at the previous generation Corvette so that you understand what I am talking about. Here we have the previous generation of the Corvette C7, and you can see the rear side, so we have again the tail lights, and that's exactly where it started, this angular design. As you can see here it is present, but here it somehow worked better. And also note the, let's say, overall area of the rear glass is bigger. Why? Because we don't have the engine here, and also engine was in the front, as you remember. And also this glass goes almost to the rear edge, and that adds to the overall perception of the rear part, because in reality it is shorter than what we have on the new car. Again, here you can see this queue with a black section. It is on the bottom here, so at least some queues they copy the previous generation, but note that exhausts are in the middle here. And in my opinion it's better looking appearance, but here we have this ugly solution what I just mentioned. We have the round corners, actually round exhaust mufflers, and on the angular design, in my opinion it's not that nice solution. But what I like is that we have the nice rear spoiler on this car instead of that ugly rear wing which we saw on the new generation. Now let's take a look at the front section of the C7. So here we have a front end of the previous generation, and in my opinion it was quite a nice car. And note the cues. Here we have the air intake. As I said before, air intake is present here on this car in the front. Why? Because we have the engine in the front, we have the brakes cooling down with this air intake, but note the air intake was also here in the rear section, which is quite surprising in my opinion. Next we have also the headlamps, and in my opinion that's the cue which let's say it copies or transferred to the new generation. Why? Because as you can see overall shape is more or less similar, but then we have the one piece mouth here which is different from what we see on the new car, because on the new car it is a complex structure in the front bumper, and note that front bumper on the new car is smaller than on the older one, because here we have the body panel like this. So just a minor changes, but note how different the new car is because of the engine placement difference. And now let's move to the even older generation. Here it is in its full beauty. It's a C6 Corvette, and in my opinion it's also quite a good looking generation of this car. But why I'm showing the rear part, because here we have this classic cue of the 4 headlamps in the tail, and those are looking quite nice. Note that here we have still the oval shaped tail lights, and later they were changed to the angular. But again here we have the central placed exhaust. We do not have this weird placement on both ends here and here, because it wouldn't work with this car. But note that at least something is, let's say, similar or somehow redesigned in the new generation, that this I would say panel for the tail plate. So it's also a matter of taste. And again we have the air intake here in the front, so just like in the next generation C7. So for those who are saying that it's like weird that we have the mid-engine Corvette, here it is. The Corvette indeed was created in 80s, and as you can see it's a mid-engine car. So the design project, also the placement of the engine in the middle, it was planned in the 80s, and we were waiting almost 20 years or 30 years if you would like, in order to see this car produced as a mass-produced car under $60,000. So here you can see again the same cues. We have the air intake here because of the mid-engine, of course, but the overall design is different. Why? Because it was 80s and the bio design was quite fashionable, so that's why we have these round curves, which are not that good looking, I would say, today. And if Chevrolet would produce such car today, it would be quite strange in my opinion. Nevertheless, overall, I really like the design of the new Corvette. I hope that it will be enhanced with a new Z1 version and maybe some following versions. But now it might be a matter of getting used to this design, and then we will consider it as a traditional 1 year later. So I would like to thank you for watching it, and let me know what do you think about the overall design of the new Corvette. Do you like it, or would you rather prefer something front engined? Write it in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video as usual. Bye.